morning. It's 9 o'clock. It's Saturday morning, and that means it's time for sunrise. I am Alero Edu.
And I'm Ayo Makine. Good morning and welcome. And let's begin by asking whether you've had your cup of cocoa this morning.
Or cocoa, whichever one you prefer.
Especially when, but you know, what do you take your cocoa or cocoa with? Bread? Or something like that? I don't know.
Bread?
How do you go get your, what?
Bread?
Yeah.
The transport fare to look for daily bread in Nigeria is now bigger than the bread itself. Okay. So, I mean, is that not the reason why Labour is asking for 615,000 naira? Well, no comments.
Well, they broke it down. I mean, they broke it down, what it's going to take and everything. Yeah, but, you know, and I'm going to leave that negotiation to them to get by. But I want to believe that we were interviewing one of these labor leaders not too long ago, and he was saying, look, that's not our rock bottom. So their rock bottom has to meet the federal government ceiling.
Yeah, but if federal government is starting from 48, it's a long shot.
Come on. The labor is also starting from skyscraper.
Well, okay. Rock bottom. Okay. There must be a meeting ground somewhere.
Because, you know, there are so many considerations on that thing.
In a country where some lawmakers are taking home 200 million a month and you want to pay the worker 48,000, a bag of rice is 75,000.
That's cheap. It's about 85, 90 now.
Where is 48,000 going to take anybody?
Let's just, as you rightly noted, I mean, it's just negotiation language, so let them get to it. But I'm just, what is important for me is our productivity. See, the civil service permits civil servants to go into farming.
Yes.
And it didn't say what aspect of farming. It says you can go into farming. So I can decide to jump in anywhere in the value chain of farming.
Because you want to plant one tomato in the back of your house now, one ugu.
I can decide to go into the logistics of farming. Is it not farming? I can decide to go into packaging of farm products. Is it not farming?
True.
It's just for us to
get into the value chain.
Yes, just get into. That's the way I would see it.
Yeah.
And so, hey, many productivity experts and coaches will tell you salary doesn't take you anywhere. It doesn't make you.
No, it doesn't actually.
So even if they increase it to 1 million naira a month, you just find that maybe some nice places that will become more populated from time to time, you know.
And then there's inflation at 33.69%.
So there are so many considerations, and I believe that Labour also has the goodwill of Nigeria at heart. More importantly, the federal government does not pay the civil servants in Kogi State.
True.
The federal government does not pay the civil servants in
Lagos State. In Lagos State.
And so how many states can afford to pay X amount of money?
That being said, I want to say that this is the chance for the state governments to also slim down its workforce, because we know that there are many people in the ministries at that level, even at the federal level, who don't do much.
You do remember that last week we spoke with the Lagos State Commissioner for Urban Development and Physical Planning.
Physical planning, yes.
And he said something, you know, in passing. He said, look, it's not easy to sack people in the civil service like that. So if you're going to take anyone out. But what I would say is, look, give them work to do. Create agencies, productivity agencies.
And that just reminds me of what Christopher Collade said when he became the ambassador in London. And he said he got into his office and he said he noticed that there was something missing, even though he couldn't put his finger on it. Then he got home at the end of the day and I said, oh, yes, I know now. There was no computer in my office.
Oh.
So the next day he goes to the office and says, make sure I have a computer by tomorrow morning. Yes. Calls his secretary in. So what's our staff strength? And I think she said 5. And he said, what are they all doing? And she couldn't quite answer that question. And he said, oh, so they want my job here to be looking for jobs for my staff to do. No, I want only one secretary, thank you very much.
Whoa.
Redeploy all the others because I don't need them. First of all, I do my own typing on my computer by myself. No, sir, the ambassador cannot type. Oh, yes, he can, and he will. He can and will. So, you have 6 staff working for under one person, and the person says, well, I have no need for them. What do you do with them?
Oh. Have you seen the convoys of our governors?
Then they say they can't pay more than 48,000.
Well, no, that's a starter offer.
Starter.
Well,
okay.
Even when you want to go, when you want to buy real estate, they will give you, what do you call it? Is it asking price they call it?
Yes. Yes.
So then you negotiate.
Then ONO.
What does that mean?
Or nearest offer.
So then you do what the Igbo man calls, you negotiate.
Governors are riding around with convoys of 50 black jeeps. 50. Last month, the princely amount of 1.2 trillion was shared. 1.2 trillion.
Divided by
these monies having increased since the cancellation of subsidy. So where is it all going?
Oh,
we don't even know what the security votes are.
Oh no, I have an idea now.
What is it?
Well, the former deputy governor of Kogi State says a governor, on the average, a governor gets about 300 million a month.
To do what with?
Security votes. You asked and I answered.
Okay. All right. And you cannot pay 48.
Come on, that's security votes. You need to secure the governor.
Okay,
he also, from what the deputy governor tells us, he also, gives from that to the deputy governor, from that to the some security agencies and all. And it is his prerogative. He can decide that, don't worry, guys, you're okay.
Okay, before we go to the menu, I also want to bring up the matter of Lagos State number plates. Some are faded. I know that it's supposed to be black on white.
No, is it blue on white?
Black on
really?
White. Yes.
No, that would be...
Some are blue.
Okay.
Blue background with black numbers, which you can't even see. Some have number plates only at the back, none in front. Some don't even have number plates at all. So what is going on? Please be consistent. Please be consistent.
Well, I would say one thing to that. There is a law that says people must have number plates on their vehicles front and back.
Okay.
Some of us may be importing the ideals in certain other parts of the world. This particular car, you don't use number plates in the front or in the back and all of that. That's what some people are doing, and that's against the law. So
there's a law in this country.
Exactly. So who is taking that on? The fact that you're big, what do we call a big man? You're not big enough, right, to erode on the rights of the country. So
okay.
So
Lagos State, please deal with this.
It's not only Lagos State.
Don't let anybody be above the law, please.
So this is our menu today.
Right, so we're going to start with the search for policy consistency, just what we're talking about. So some people are allowed to go without number plates.
And the living wage that the FG promised, I would have said living wage versus minimum wage. But hey, what do I know?
The World Hypertension Day to 2024. Do you know your numbers?
Okay. And it was International Boy Child Day, was it a few days ago? So today we're talking about raising the boy child.
And we shall close with the Artist of the Week segment. And all I will tell you
is
she's a she.
It's a, not a shame.
What are you getting all upset about?
Where's my cup of cocoa?
Well, I think I'll have cocoa this morning.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how I'm going to be eating cocoa on air, but never mind. We'll find a way around it. See you in just a moment.
I don't care who you are, where you're from.
Right.
Just as long as
From primary school business studies, junior secondary school economics, right up to PhD level, it is taught that policy somersaults are very bad for business and for economic growth. Within the last 1 year, so many decisions have been made and then reversed. The takeoff of the student loan scheme, for instance, was in a flux because due to indecision, the effective date could not be met. Nigerians are not sure how much to pay for electricity because the government cannot make up its mind on whether to subsidize it or obey the IMF directive. There's also the interminable ups and downs in the foreign exchange market that is not helping the value of our currency. Then the subsidy removal, and then it appears, and then it goes. It's been going and coming for a few years now. Because I remember we were told I think it was under Buhari, that the petroleum junior minister actually came on air and said to us that subsidy had been removed. But of course, it hadn't been. Or so it seemed. So we have been going and coming on a number of issues. That is the crux of what we're going to discuss this morning. Why is that happening? Are we making enough effort to actually make our policies work? Joining us this morning from our studio in Abuja is Dr. Oke Ikechukwu, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. Good morning, Doctor. Good to have you with us.
Okay.
Dr. Ikechukwu.
Well, yes. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, jolly. Well, right. Mrs. Bumi Oshunti will join us later on the conversation. Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead. Yeah, just hold on.
Can hear you.
Okay.
Yes. Doctor, so what do you think is responsible for all this somersaulting, those goings and comings? Is it that we don't really know what we want to do?
No, it's not. A good deal of the time, policy reversals are a result from decisions that were taken before all the facts were available to the person taking the decision. That's one possible cause. Another possible cause is that you take a policy decision, you begin the implementation, some of the things arising from it leave you in no doubt that that policy was either not fully thought through or that there are unanticipated consequences that oblige you to review the policy. So, on its own, the fact that a policy is reviewed or reversed does not amount to something that's terrible if that decision is justified based on emerging facts. So, in the case of the government policies and the reversals, I understand the concern is the number and frequency. It's certainly becoming a little worrisome. Some of them, if you take, for instance, the student loan scheme, when it came out and people reviewed the criteria, the outcry was, by this criteria, nobody's going to get this loan. Then it was reviewed, and the new conditions suggested a much more liberal template that clearly would make it accessible to a lot of people. But I believe the concern, which is part of the earlier comment, yes, you brought it out. It's bad enough you didn't see how bad it was when you brought it out. You've reversed it, but please, can the students now access it? That's part of the issue. So 3 things on the table. Number 1, policy reversal is very likely due to consequences unanticipated or policies that were not sufficiently thought through or were overtaken by events or competing interests that Once the policy is out, those interests come out and present countervailing argument. The bad news from there is that it then means you didn't consult sufficiently. I mean, you mentioned the student loan, yes, but there's also the tax on, what do you,
cybersecurity.
No, expatriate, yes. You know, the expatriate employment tax and several others. The reversals are many. On the negative side, it could imply, oh, these guys don't really think things through. They just jump out with policy. On the positive side, it could mean, okay, they really want to do something, they are eager, and each time they are told that something is wrong, they listen and reverse it, and they suggest, oh, they are listening. So there are definitely two perspectives on this matter, none of which can claim absolute inviolability.
Doctor, your summation, I find very embarrassing that a country as huge as Nigeria, as important to the sub-region as Nigeria is, would actually voice a policy without giving it deep thought and looking at all the angles. And of course, you mentioned one of the policies that we have been going up and down about. And as you were talking, my mind went specifically to the oil subsidy, because it does seem as if that pronouncement was made on May 29th before the consequences were then thought about, and then the palliatives to reduce the effect on the people seemed to have come as afterthoughts. How does this work, that an entire government would look at a policy that carried so much weight and speak it before looking at the ramifications?
First, I'd like to agree with you completely that it is embarrassing. Looking at the subsidy, I've suddenly lost voice. Can you hear me?
We can hear you clearly.
Okay, fine. So the announcement was made. One sentence, subsidy is gone. Imagine that after that announcement, the next day palliatives were rolled out, very well structured, at the federal level, at the state level, at the local government level. Nigerians would have been up in excitement, applauding the government. But like you rightly observed, it became apparent that that announcement was not preceded by any logistical considerations, funding provisions, thought about how to ameliorate the clearly dire consequences. And I'll take it from the angle of impact. Impact and preparation. When were the elections concluded? The president was not sworn in immediately after the elections were concluded. I think that was elections ended in February, swearing in was in May. So assuming anybody was contemplating the removal of oil subsidy, that's more than enough time to think it through. How is this going to be done? What is the likely advisable new price? What will be the effect of that on commerce, on retail trade, on businesses, on small and medium-scale enterprises? How are we going to scale it? Okay, on May 29th, I'm going to announce the removal of subsidy. As I announce it, I will also announce that SMEs will have a tax holiday for 1 year, and that, at the level of the homes, we'll take inventory and census of school census and determine that for this, parents will not pay school fees because this money recovered that wouldn't go into subsidy. Imagine that happened. What would have followed subsequently would be the logistical administration of the palliatives. Once the announcement was made, nothing was heard for a time. Then we had about palliatives, I think 6 billion naira per state. It didn't get to anybody for quite some time. Then at a point we learned that 2 billion was released. Now, even looking at it, that 6 billion, even if it was released at the same time, it also goes to the point, very valid point you're making about thinking things through. Should every state of the federation get exactly the same amount, irrespective of population and other demographic details? The answer is no. So yes, that particular policy, which is likely responsible for much of the misfortunes Nigeria is suffering now, appeared to have been put on the table without due consideration for its multiplier effects and its likely crippling effect on the economy. And so you then find that even with that announcement, there's now the news fake news, rumor, fact that there is also still subsidy. In the midst of that, the price of fuel is still going up. And I think that was some months ago, a totally insane World Bank announced that the ideal price would be $7.50 back then. On which economy? On which income? The income of the person you're asking to pay has not increased, but the price of fuel has increased. The man who used to spend 500 naira to go to work now spends about 2008. The salary is still the same. The price of food is up. So sometimes you ask yourself whether some of those who insist on advising us on what is good for us, whether they are drinking something unusual or they are living on the moon. But coming back to the substantive issue you've raised, yes, that was a clear, unacceptably unfortunate instance of a policy that did not appear to have been thought through, prepared for, before engagement.
Dr. Ikechukwu, that policy isn't really new. The president only made a pronouncement. Before the election of 2023, the general elections, I recall seeing a content where the former Minister of Works, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, was saying that subsidy had been removed before the election. And that I also recall the finance minister making some pronouncements and saying, well, the subsidy has been removed, but the termination of it will be in June of 2023. What the president said during inauguration was, look, making reference to the fact that that subsidy has been removed, which is why he just made that, subsidy is gone. Could we have misunderstood it? Because these are facts. Could we have misunderstood, or it was just the market reacting instantaneously to that pronouncement?
Well, whatever response one gives would be largely speculative. I did not understand the president to be referring to Fashola's statement of some months earlier. And I'd like to put it on the table that the petroleum pricing issue has been one industry where the major raw material the stakeholders are working with is lies and half-truths and deliberate misinformation. Go back to the Abacha days. You recall it was 9 o'clock news that the official announcement was made that there was not going to be any hike in fuel price, contrary to what was being rumored in the media. The next day, as that news was going on, meters were being reset all over Nigeria. The new price took off from the next day. Now, remember, before Buhari became president, he said there was no subsidy, that it's a lie, that the money is just being carried away. He came on. What happened? More subsidy than anybody can contemplate. Then the current president announced that subsidy was gone. And if you recall, in the first month, we were informed gleefully that Nigeria has actually saved 400 billion within that first month, which means about 100 billion a month. And I remember, I think it was on your program, somebody had said, oh, okay, so let them tell Nigerians what they spent it on. I said, no, please, let them not tell us. Let them not spend it. Let them keep it. Let's agree on what it should be spent on. Now, the crisis for me at the level of conceptualization and making sense of something is that you saved 400 billion within the first month, which means this is money I was to have paid, but I'm not paying it. It would mean that for every other month after that, you've been saving 400 billion. So the question is, how does the conversation about introduction of subsidy fit into this information we have? It doesn't make sense to me. And it would appear actually that subsidy is back and it's been confirmed by some marketers. Then you hear government denying it. So what are Nigerians to believe? So I'd like, assuming the statement the president made derived from Fashola's statement, then he wouldn't have said, this month we've saved. That was the first saving on record. After that, what happened? So that's the angle from where I want to take it.
Absolutely.
And saying that the question of subsidy is not new. No, it is not new, but it has remained a source of confusion. Abacha increased fuel price. To ameliorate the outcry, he said, okay, I'll set up the petroleum trust fund so that the money derived from it will be used to develop infrastructure. If you recall, that was the same argument when fuel price was increased, when pump price was increased under Obasanjo. Oh, hospitals and so many other things. As far back as the Abacha days, then I was on the Guardian editorial board. I opposed it. I said, listen, there is no need. Everything you're going to ask PTF to do are domiciled or is domiciled in one ministry or the other. If you create extra institutional platforms, what's going to happen is that accountability will decline. That's why in those days, you go to a hospital that's under the Federal Ministry of Health with budget on drugs and everything. You have on one side PTF drug, all that drama. In the end, what happened? What did we gain from the increase the fuel price? Nothing. Then all subsequent increases were anchored on what the money will be used for when the subsidy is no longer there. Right. Where have we gotten ourselves?
Very interesting
we must
perspective.
Look the truth in the face and call it a name. What I see on the table is an absolutely incomprehensible quagmire in the name of fuel supply, fuel subsidy, welfare of Nigerians. I think our name is being taken in vain as Nigerians. Yes, you remove fuel subsidy. What is it that has improved?
Perhaps part of the issues, Prof. Perhaps part of the Dr. Keju, perhaps part of the issue is in one of the words that you used earlier, or was it maybe it was even Alero that was talking about collaboration. But there is more to it. We've since been joined by Bumi Oshuntuyi, who is Secretary General and Permanent Head of the International Chamber of Commerce in Nigeria. So good morning and thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Happy to join the discussion this morning.
Yeah, well, talking about policy inconsistency and all of that, one of the questions that I'd like to begin with you is perhaps, is it really a somersault or a lack of communication, collaboration, and coordination? The governor of the CBN made a pronouncement in compliance with a law in the country, the cyber security law in the country, that says X amount should be paid, X percentage of all transactions should be paid for cybersecurity and all of that. It is in the law. It's not even new. It's something that's been on since like 2015. Implementing it has always been an issue. But after the pronouncement and the outcry, the president then comes in to, in a way, overrule, suspend the pronouncement of the CBN. In a way, overrule the CBN, one might say. So is it a problem of lack of collaboration or coordination, or it's just that we just happen to be doing things in silo? What do you think the issue could have been? Just that one example, for instance.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me this morning. I want to say that it's a combination of everything you just said. Combination because it's the role of government to make a law. It's the role of government to allow the citizenry to understand the law. It is the role of government even to give a process for bringing the law to reality. And that is why I said it is a combination of everything you just mentioned. If, for instance, there's a time frame for the actualization of the law, it will not be coming at this time that things are really very hard on the people. And it could cause a lot of uproar. I think internally, government needs to have a proper coordination of its activities before issuing out of rules and counter rules to give the citizenry confidence in the government of the day. Yes, it's important. We need to protect the citizenry. We need to protect our borders. We need to protect. But even at that, yes, we have taken our steps to make the law. For instance, I would have expected the National Orientation Agency or any of the government parastatals given this responsibility to educate people over laws and rules of government to take it up on board collaborate with media houses in the nation and even globally, so that everybody will know that this is being done. So I think I would want to suggest that the steps being taken by the president and commander-in-chief is a right step, so that the government apparatus can go internally and talk with each other, itemize the process they want to follow to actualize the reality of this law. It's an existing law, no doubt. Everyone could see that it's been there, but it's just that it's not being brought to the consciousness of the citizenry, and for us to actually take necessary action towards it.
Mrs. Osuntoye, you spoke about consistency as engendering the confidence of Nigerians. What about the confidence of foreign investors in the economy when we keep going back and forth?
You just spoke in my mind, because I represent International Chamber of Commerce. And the slogan of ICC is that we make business work for everyone, every day, everywhere. And how can we make business work for everyone if the environment is stifling, if the environment is not welcome, if the environment makes it difficult for people to carry out their reasonable businesses all over the world? So it's really a concern for us as an institution. It's a concern even for the foreigners who want to bring their investment to the country. If Nigerians themselves are particularly concerned and frustrated at this moment, I think government needs to go deeply to look into this, so that all the efforts being made towards the investment, whether internal investment or foreign direct investment, will actualize its purpose. If nothing is done towards this, we'll just be working at cross purposes. Yeah. You want people to come and do their businesses in Nigeria, and you make laws, you frustrate them with taxes. As they are taxing them locally, they are taxing them from the world, from the street, from area boy, from human being, from everywhere. It could be very frustrating, in all sincerity. This is the time that we should ensure that we encourage a lot of organizations to come, members of many chambers, like NASIMA, like Lagos Chamber, like Abuja Chamber, Nigerian American Chamber, Nigerian British. They are all members of ICC Nigeria. Ideally, what chambers do is that they bring delegation of businesses, they bring business to business interaction, but this has been dying day by day. Only few people are coming. And we need to do all that we can. We need to grow the economy. If we are growing the economy, we need to do all that we can to make sure that indeed the economy is growing. It's not that we take one step forward and 10 steps backward. I agree with you absolutely. Something drastically needs to be done. And we need to have a line of focus, so that we are not working, at cross purposes. I keep saying that word. If you are working at cross purpose, just like a husband and a wife, if the wife is going in a direction and the husband is going in another direction, it will result in something they didn't plan for. So it's very, very germane. The Minister for Trade and Investment was speaking, I think, on the program yesterday with the British High Commission and so on. And I'm like, these are initiatives that should come on a regular basis. And then there should be confidence for those who are coming through this program, so that they would indeed have the desire of the nation at heart to establish their businesses and not to be frustrated out.
Dr. Ikechukwu, is it that these policies are not properly monitored and evaluated? Do we have systems in place to actually monitor and evaluate these policies once they are made?
Yes, normally there's M&E, that's monitoring and evaluation, but where I seem to have an issue is the very policy itself. When I ask, take for instance the cybersecurity tax thing. should that policy really exist, even if it's happening in other places? You have the tertiary education tax. All manner of taxes are being smuggled onto the table, and it is the manufacturers, the productive sector that is being done. Can that be part of regular line budgets? That's the issue to raise, or that's part of the issue to raise. Then just a point on the point the last an issue on the point the last speaker made. No amount of campaigns on television or traveling outside the country will bring investment, because we bring investment on its own, except the operating environment and the regulatory environment are seen to be welcoming. And I'll cite an example. Just 2 weeks ago, Wike, the Minister of FCT, resolved a 10-year controversy over Centenary City. Abuja Centenary City should have been fully developed by now, but this whole matter of politics, one thing or the other, dragged on until he called them and said, listen, this matter, FCDA, FCTA, Centenary City PLC, resolve it. But in the interim, within the first 2 years of the takeoff, the investor who was ready to drop $18 billion after more than a year went off with his money. So the issue of environment is there. But substantively on the question of policy, monitoring and evaluation, let us carefully know that a number of policies we have need reevaluation from the angle of, should this policy be in place at all in the first place? Secondly, if it should be in place, the way it's formulated is that's the best way that will enable it deliver results. Mm-hmm. Secondly, thirdly, are we doing a comprehensive, systematic review of all policies periodically and using their impact to determine that they are working? So I am always reluctant to say that the problem of policies is implementation. A bad policy will deliver nothing, no matter how you implement it. So, and also implementation without key performance indicators, KPIs. But we need to create jobs for the youth. We've budgeted X amount of money, we've spent it. Are there jobs? More jobs are being created. Fantastic. Are you also taking inventory of the jobs being lost? Okay, you've created 500,000 jobs. Now the fuel subsidy has wiped out 600,000. So what actually has happened is that you've lost 100,000 jobs. Now, that kind of analysis, and I'm glad you used the word monitoring and evaluation. There must be systemic monitoring and evaluation, but in a holistic manner. When it is episodic, trade and investment has gone to speak with the Chinese, they say they are bringing in this amount, but then the regulatory environment has made 2 other people to run away, and you're focusing us on the man coming in. How will you operate? All of these things should be taken together comprehensively. So policy formulation should be preceded by detailed consultation of all stakeholders. A core element in all of this is policy justification. It's not enough that, we have this policy. No, you may not have to implement it. Review it. Take the one we mentioned about the student loan. They announced it and found out that their content made it totally useless to anybody, for anybody to access. So in the first place, review and confirm that some policies are good as they are on paper, are still good as they are on paper. Work out implementation strategies. And then the key performance indicators. In the absence of that, you will have policy, you will say it is implementation, but the policy is formulated in such a way that it cannot be implemented. If you look at NNPC, for instance, there are 2 departments that cannot work as we speak because of how the entire place is reconfigured. Nobody wants to address it. They're all there having internal fighting and all of that. But it's a policy document that set up those 2 new things, and it's not working. So back to your point, monitoring and evaluation, bearing in mind value to the Nigerian state, to the Nigerian economy, to the Nigerian citizen. That must be the basis for policy evaluation. And from all indications, that is not happening, unfortunately.
Takechike, it's really very interesting, this conversation that we're having when we talk about collaboration. Let me ask Mr. Oshuti again this question. You have commercial businesses spread in all 36 states of the country, and all of them are directly or indirectly affected by whatever policy government comes up with. In terms of communicating it, in terms of educating people, in terms of stakeholder engagement that Dr. Ikechukwu spoke to, because it is a policy that comes from the federal government that everyone should, one way or the other, domesticate, what kind of communication, stakeholder engagement should be going on between the federal government and the states so that we can actually maximize impact?
I want to say that in terms of interfacing with government, we do that regularly, especially when we interface right from our headquarters that is in Paris. It's not that the headquarters of ICC in Paris will come and, tell us how we run our country. But in the ICC focuses on producing rules that governs international trade. For instance, the week we are just ending, we had something that we call export-import global standard in international trade. No country is an island. No country can say, okay, I want to do trade alone. And they say trade is the lifeblood of every economy. If, for instance, we know the rules that governs a particular trade, a particular country, the processes that people are to follow, people will not continue to waste their resources and send their goods to a would-be buyer, and the would-be buyer will reject it. These are processes and procedures, and that is what we specialize on as an organization that has over 45 million members, cutting across big, small, medium, small and medium. We do a lot of engagement. Many of these engagements, because of COVID now, they are virtual, so it makes it easy. We have what you call the Center of Entrepreneurship that makes people who are into entrepreneurship or who want to even venture into entrepreneurship to really understand what it takes. And the continued engagement with government has, I would say that in recent time has not been it has not been very beehive kind of engagement. And what we do in the ICC in Nigeria is that we recognize it. We recognize the position of NACIMA. NACIMA is the National Chamber of the nation. So as NACIMA, when NACIMA is speaking, I believe NACIMA is speaking on behalf of every of the chambers in the country. But we stand as our position as the International Chamber of Commerce, and where necessary, we give our opinion over some issues, and otherwise, even where necessary, we even pay courtesy call and courtesy visit. As you may have observed, the Secretary General of the ICC, I'm talking of Global ICC, John Denton, interfaces regularly with Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala because World Trade Organization is very critical to the work we do. So we are very much ready and willing to engage government. And you would also observe that in some of the ministries and parastatals there have been a few changes. And when there are few changes, the person you are engaging with before may have been retired, or a new person is coming in, the person does not understand you or does not even know what you do or what you represent. It could be very discouraging. But that notwithstanding, I can give you assurances that the engagement we have has not subsided. We are increasing the tempo. We are sending our position over issues and our recommendations. We are sending it to government. The different parastatals, I'm not even talking about the Ministry of Trade and Investment alone, the different parastatals, because what ICC do goes beyond just trade. We are involved in the issue of arbitration. We are involved in the issue of many sectors of the economy. And essentially what we want to do is to ensure that trade and we make business work. Everyone should be able to trade and be able to get the resources of their trading without having to make undue losses, or without someone taking advantage of the person.
Right, Mrs. Oshinshu. Thank you very much. I see that you have you still have a lot to unpack to us, but this is the nature of live television. Time is never our friend, and we just got to shut it down for today. This is only a conversation starter. I mean, this issue of policy consistency will continue to come up in Nigeria as long as we keep going up and down, because we are told now that a message just came in about the power policy. Federal government holds issuance of regulatory autonomy to states regarding power. So this conversation will not go away, but for today, this is where we have to leave it. I just have to thank you very much, Mrs. Bumi Osuntui, Secretary General, Permanent Head of the International Chamber of Commerce of Nigeria, as well as Professor Ikechukwu, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. Thank you very much, lady and gentlemen, for sharing your time and insights with us this morning. Sunrise will be right back with another interesting conversation. Do stay with us.
Okay, so that's the next conversation we're having. Minimum wage versus living wage. Honestly, that's too well. Love to caption that. But hey, we're talking about the living wage that the federal government promised. Of course, the economic aspirations and the material well-being of the most vulnerable and the working people should not be neglected. After all, the labors of our heroes past shall never be in vain. So it's not only good economics to do the right thing by the people when the president says he will implement a living wage, for Nigerians. So this week, the federal government proposed a counteroffer of 48,000 naira to the labor movement's 615,000 naira national minimum wage. Of course, in a dramatic turn of events, both the NLC and the TUC walked out of the tripartite committee meeting in an apparent breakdown of negotiations. We hear that both parties or all parties are returning to the negotiation table next week. I guess we'll wait for all of that to happen. What's this all about, and where do we go from here? Let's have this conversation with two gentlemen joining us this morning. Roman Asegale is here with us in the studio. He's a business intelligence analyst. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And we also have Dr. Monday Ashibogo, who is a policy analyst. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
All right. Well, let me begin with you, Mr. Asegale. I mean, this has been a long time coming. Looking to the history of Nigeria, the first time I think that government workers had a jump, an unexpected jump in their pay was in the 70s with the Udoji Award. It was a literal sky-rise jump. But now, since that time, it would seem like we've just been crawling, so to speak. And now the labor is, they tend to be asking for the same jump.
Crawling backwards?
Sort of.
Okay.
What do you make of all that's going on?
Okay. If you have to go back to the 70s, right, you need to look at the scenarios covering the whole events of the 70s. The oil boom of 1973 because of the Yom Kippur War. You remember the story of the Yom Kippur War, right? And crude oil jumped from $2 per barrel. I think about $2. It was $1.27 in 1970. And about 1973 was about $2. Jumped to almost $12, right? So we were washed with petrodollars, right? And that was the period our sitting head of state said money was not our problem,
but how to spend
it. So there was money then, right? But you see, I always say this, the devil is in the detail. What are they actually pursuing? Is it minimum wage or living wage? Because you're hearing minimum wage, you're hearing living wage. And I think we need to define both to know where we stand. The term living wage refers to a theoretical income level that allows individuals or families to afford adequate shelter, food, and other necessities. The goal of a living wage is to allow employees to earn enough income for a satisfactory standard of living and prevent them from falling into poverty. That is living wage. Minimum wage, on the other hand, has been defined as the minimum amount of remuneration that an employer is required to pay wage earners for the work performed during a given period, which cannot be reduced by collective agreement or an individual contract. So, on one hand, the living wage is what I think Mr. A needs to earn so that he does not fall into poverty. On the other hand, minimum wage, as defined, means that what you and I agree that I'm going to pay out. It does not necessarily mean that I will pay you something that will not enable you fall into poverty.
Okay.
Okay.
So it may be lower than the living wage.
Good. So government might say we are proposing 48,000 naira living wage. That's what government believes that Mr. A should earn so that he doesn't
fall.
That's a
living wage or a minimum wage, going by that definition? Don't answer it yet. Dr. Shibogo, it's like Mr. Segale has fallen into my trap. Because I asked the question. What we're talking about really is the living wage that the FG promised. But the question that I'm asking is minimum wage versus living wage. And he has asked that we, first of all, divide between the two. Let's be clear which one is which. What do you think is going on? Which one should we really be talking about? Because minimum wage, according to Mr. Segale, is something that the employer determines. But the living wage is something that should be as maybe determined by the lifestyle of the worker. Where should we be looking in what direction do you think we should be looking?
I think the government is trying to be smart by half. It's actually wrong for a government to speak to living wage. It's not their purview. It's not their responsibility to speak to living wage. A government's responsibility is to minimum wage. Minimum wage is backed by a law stating that this is the amount you cannot pay below this amount to any worker in the country, be it private or public sector. And when that law is gazetted, it means that any employer of labor should not pay anyone below that given amount as stated by law. Living wage is the reality of payments made to an employer that puts that employer above board. What we mean above board, it means that that individual cannot afford to go into penury or poverty. That is living wage. What we should be concerned about by government's policy is to establish that private sector and the public sector has capacity to meet up a minimum standard of wages to workers. And that should be the threshold to say this is the least you can pay anyone that works for you in Nigeria. For example, the UK rates their minimum wage on hours, and they will tell you cannot pay someone less than £11. And now they've also increased by a policy saying that if you bring in somebody into the country, you pay more to that person. They are trying to use that to deter them from bringing in foreign workers and use that other minimum wage to pay their citizens. So when you start talking about living wage, I think the government is just trying to be smart by half. They have not addressed the issue.
Okay.
The issue is what should be the least payment to a worker in Nigeria.
Perhaps that is part of the conversation to have in the coming days, because our law as you rightly said, talks about a minimum wage, not a living wage. Maybe the thinking of the president in particular is, look, we should have a more satisfying life and not just barely living. Maybe, I don't know, I don't speak for the president, So, but and gentlemen, let's look at these conversations, as holistically as possible. Dr. Ashibogu and Mr. Segara, both of you kindly speak to the fact that the population of the workforce, at any given time, the workforce is not only made of civil servants. It's made of workers in the private sector. It's made up of micro, small, and medium entrepreneurs. It's made of people who literally eke a living. So, in terms of wage income, in terms of earnings, because whether it's a salary or whatever, it is some kind of earnings. Do you think these things factor? Because historically, whenever there is a pay rise, everything else rises, accordingly. And the
market is waiting for you.
Exactly.
With your pay rise.
Exactly. And those who can't earn any more than they can earn by themselves, they're going to be in a lurk somehow. What do you make of that?
Well, government may propose a living wage or a minimum wage, whichever one they intend to stick by. But you also need to look at the power of the private sector. Will the private sector be able to afford it? Now, we've had petroleum subsidy removed. Mm-hmm. We've had power increased, right? Mm-hmm. Now, those two drivers or those two factors are basically, they are related to inflation. Anytime you increase fuel, you find that prices go up. Anytime you increase cost of power, prices go up. So you're invariably increasing prices of production, prices of services, right? Now, by the time you do that, you look at your bottom line. That means that your profits are basically eroding. Will you be able to afford what government is saying they are going to keep or propose as minimum wage? That is a matter for the private sector.
Mr. Ashibogu, this whole thing is now looking to me like the case of the chicken and the egg. If an employer of labor will have to pay more, it means he will have to make more money to be able to afford to pay more. Where is he going to get this money so that he can afford to pay his staff more? Taking into account, of course, the fact that a guy who used to pay 500 naira to get to work now has to pay about 3,000 to get to work. The food he used to eat probably for about 40,000 naira a month, he now has to spend about 100 on. All these things are facing the employee, but his employer cannot afford to raise his pay because he is not making more money. So it's like, musical chairs. Mr. Ashibogu, your reaction?
You just given the chicken and egg scenario. But you've just given the chicken and egg scenario. Let me give my own scenario. It's like asking someone to sell his car to buy fuel. So where are you going to put the fuel? So the last minimum wage that had been naira a month. Most entrepreneurs and employers of labor today can't pay 30,000 naira a month to unskilled workers. Cite an example of even a government agency, the NNPC retail. The retail stations ask how much are the the fuel attendants being paid. They are paid far. So we must face this reality. The question is, what is the profit margin? So if you're calling someone in the private sector that accounts for over 70% of your workforce, you must also look at their income patterns. The system is entirely dysfunctional right now because we are overburdened by different levies and taxes, coupled with the fact that there's so much uncertainty that has made people to increase the cost of their products and services because they are not set. It is that phobia for replacement cost today that you have skyrocketed prices in the stores and shops today. So you find a product that you buy for 1 naira yesterday being sold for 7 naira today. That person is living on a morbid fear that going back to the market to replace that particular product, he may not find it. If you have such scenarios and the system, which is regulated by government, cannot guarantee safety nets for businesses for replacement cost, then you should not be discussing benchmarks for minimum wage that the one you had in the past that is not realistic, had not even been applied by private sector. Then so I share in that thought that we should increase wages for workers. I share in that thought that income should also change. The question we should ask ourselves, which is very fundamental, is where will this money come from?
And that leads me to this question. Just a second. On that, Dr. Ashibogo, that leads me to the question of productivity. Many times when we talk about increasing pay rise, increasing salaries and pay rise for workers and all of that, number one, we don't talk about increasing how, if at all, their responsibilities or productivity levels increase. We don't talk about what Alero mentioned the other time, the over-bloated ministries, departments, and agencies, that are said to be over-bloated with too many staff that are doing too little. Even citing the example of an ambassador while in office. So, in terms of these negotiations, is this something that should come to the table? That, okay, pay will increase, but productivity should also increase. Maybe then we can be talking about how, how these monies will come. What do you think?
See, the challenge I have is we like to listen to what we love to hear, but we don't want the truth to be said in the way it is. You are asking for a review in income, stability of that income. So sadly, I listened to Dr. Okechukwu, and we should ask, what is the quality of employment? What is the quality of employment? You stated convoy of a governor. The convoy of a governor at least goes with nothing less than. So let's assume that 390 people in the National Assembly have same number. We've created jobs, but what is the quality of that job? Will that job lead to productivity? So the issue is, we have no problem having an overbloated workforce, provided that workforce impacts on productivity.
Okay, let me bring it. Yes, just a second, Dr. Ashibogo. Just a second.
Let me come in. You want productivity to increase, right? What are the policies you put down for local production? I'll give you an example. I consult for a power company, right? They're into metering, the prepaid meters. The second phase of the prepaid meters that government wants to install, right? They are going to import. And it runs into billions. Do you understand? So for productivity to increase, there must be demand. Who is going to take if I manufacture these goods, if I manufacture these things now, who are the people that are going to buy them? You understand? So government, first of all, if we want productivity to increase, to reflect wages, we need to create the market for that productivity here. People need to buy locally made. Look, Nigeria is 200 million plus.
There's a market.
There's a market. We can't even exhaust our own market. If government comes out with sustainable policies, consistent policies that has to do with manufacturing, protecting the market, you understand? A lot of industries here will strive. And that productivity we can achieve to a certain degree. But when you're not protecting your market, you bring out a policy today, tomorrow you leave the policy, and then goods coming across the borders again, and then the next thing is that what you have put on ground, the goods that come from the borders, kill them immediately. How do you want to now increase the productivity of an average individual on the road?
And those that come in are even cheaper.
Exactly.
Well, let me put this question to you directly. What would you advise is a suitable minimum wage, taking into consideration the rate of inflation at 33.69, cost of transportation, which probably went up about 200-300% since subsidy was removed, cost of power, which also went up about 300%, then food inflation. People have to eat. So taking all these costs into consideration, which I'm sure are some of the costs that Labour took to the negotiating table in the course of the week, what would you advise as a minimum wage? Maybe a tough question.
Yes, it's a very tough question. But to answer that question, I'm gonna go back in time. 1981, minimum wage was 125 naira. And the equivalent of that minimum wage then was $204. $1 being 61 kobo. Now, if you go back and multiply that, convert that $204 to present day, using present day conversion rate,
yes,
you get about over 300,000 naira. But the so-called minimum wage government is proposing now, right?
$34.
Is about $34 from $204 43 years ago. So we've been on reverse gear for the past 43 years, right? The inflation today stands at about, is it
33.69?
33.69.
Yeah.
So it's a very dicey question, right? But the major thing is, where will, even if they say they want to pay 250 or 300,000,
where will they get it
where will the money come from?
I have a few ideas.
Where?
I have a few ideas.
Where?
Block all those leakages.
Look,
a governor leaves office, we hear he has gone away with X number of billions.
It's a fantastic idea, but let me digress a bit and go into the budget. You have a budget of 28.7 trillion, right? And I keep saying this, the trillions we hear deceives us. Your budget is only $36 billion for over 200 million people, right? Now, South Africa, 2022-2023 fiscal year, had a budget of 136.6 billion. Education was 27 billion. Health was 16.4 billion. Between education and health was about 44 billion. So we are struggling, right? We don't even have enough. Nigeria is a mineral resource rich country, but a fiscal poor country. That's the point I'm trying to make. We are a mineral resource. You
still haven't given us a figure yet?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. You may propose 250, 300,000. If you're looking at the living wage today, for anybody not to fall into poverty, honestly, I would say it should be between 250 to 300,000.
So the question remains, Sir Segale, where will the money come from?
That's the problem, and that's why I analyzed the budget for you.
Well, and many times, Dr. Ashibagu, when we talk about minimum wage, we're looking at the federal government and its capacity or a lack of it to pay. Someone was, I think as a former or serving government official, said something at some point. Said when the minimum wage was 18,000 naira, some states couldn't pay. When the minimum wage rose to 30,000 naira, some states still couldn't pay. And now we're looking at, if the federal government, for instance, should listen to Mr. Zegale this morning, 250 to 300,000 naira. Where will the money come from? And how many states can pay?
And Dr. Ashibogu, before you respond to that, this is in a country where some lawmakers, we're told, take home as much as 200 million per month. So redistribution could help, I'm sure.
You redistribute even the 200 million, let's say part of component of it is about lifestyle, and then they have a workforce as well. These guys are actually building a war chest for elections. So that money is going to actually trickle down into the pockets of some Nigerians as well. But the truth be said, you see, where will the money come from? How many factories are operational in Nigeria? How many industries are bent on killing them? We have a vindictive civil service. I'll give you an example. At the moment, I'm in Abuja, and I went down just last month. That woman found it difficult to operate in Gwarim. Every day, she had one government official coming in to ask her.
Dr. Ashibogu, you're breaking.
No, I mean, see, I'm. Roman has just even given you a classical example of what I've spoken about in the power sector.
Okay. Well, set
up a factory. Yeah. He puts in all the equipment to build a metering plant. Then,
oh dear.
Hours and start importing the same product at a lesser cost, and then you expect over 3,000 people in that factory to be paid. And the workers will look at the owner of that factory as a demon who has refused to pay them their salaries.
Absolutely. Well, there's some.
If you're looking for money, you're looking for that money is not coming from anywhere. If you redistribute, it would only impact on our civil service that accounts for over 70% of our revenues being redeployed in recurrent expenditure for. And is the civil service a productive factory?
Well, I asked the question earlier, Dr. Ashibogu. What is the percentage of the, civil servants all over the country in the entire workforce? But, that's a conversation for another time. Some responses coming in. We have this one from Tola, who says, any employer that runs any business based on minimum wage shouldn't be in business. We honestly ask ourselves if what we are doing is business, or are we just creating slave labor or camps we call business? Festus Akimboyewa says about the same topic. NSC and TUC demand for 15,000 naira monthly minimum wage. That's based on a family of 6.
615.
NLC and TUC demand for 615,000 naira monthly minimum wage. That's based on a family of 6 is unrealistic and shows the labor unions are not serious. But FG's proposal of 48,000 naira minimum wage in a country where a bag of rice is about 80,000 naira is the height of wickedness. Minimum wage must be realistic and affordable so that employers will not resort to laying off workers. I think this point has already been made. And let's just be clear. How many people really buy a bag of rice anyway? Tola is back and says wages and productivity are directly linked. Low wage will always bring low productivity because more time is used to find additional incomes. Waste is what is generated, and that is what we see in government establishments. Chris has this issue via email. Living wage is the amount expected for a family to survive in a year. He says survive. In the UK, it is £27,000. That's why a tax threshold, that is, you do not pay tax if you earn less than £12,000 in the UK, produces, but each of these are for a year. Now, the question remains, where will this money come from? Let me ask you, Mr. Segale and Dr. Ashibogu, but first to you, Mr. Segale. Who are the people that should be talking together about this issue? We know that the federal government is already speaking with TUC and the NLC, the labor movement, the organized labor. I'm not sure whether the private sector is themselves involved because even the OPS is offering 54,000 naira, a little more than the federal government. Who are the people? Are we talking to all the stakeholders, because once labor the salaries increase, prices increase. Shouldn't we be also be talking to these service providers?
I think it should be an inclusive discussion. Just like you've said, the service providers. But I think government also needs to hold town hall meetings. People are, to be very honest with you, people are suffering. They need to hear from the man on the streets. They need to, because a lot of government officials, politicians, they sit in their comfort zone, right? They are chauffeur driven, they have their bulletproof cars, they have their security. So they really don't know.
They are detached.
Exactly, they are detached from the realities of the society. And I think that it's not just the private sector, service providers, government, and politicians. No, there need to be town hall meetings. And those town hall meetings they'll reflect the realities of the present day situation. So that's what I believe should happen.
Dr. Ashibogu, your same question.
I'm with you.
Are we talking to the right set of people, or we are just ticking the box?
We're talking to the right set of people, but they have no solutions to the problem. That's the truth. You're talking to NECA, you are talking to the employers of labor, you're talking to the organized private sector, you're talking to the federal government. The federal government is saddled with the responsibility of creating a law that will have a benchmark. And as you rightly said, 18,000, many of the states couldn't even afford it, not to talk of the industries in those states. Now, at 30,000, people are still struggling with that. So the question is, what the conversation should be is, what are the incentives you need to put in place to have productivity, at its peak, and then you can then speak to minimum wage. At the moment, we are killing more industries in this country. We are killing more industries. We are introducing all manner of policies and levies that will muzzle the industries out. And even the services sectors is also muzzled. So the truth, the appropriate incentive for productivity to take place, we shouldn't be speaking about minimum wage. We will just be walking around in circles. If you quote me, if you put it at 600 and in fact put it at 1 million naira a month, no problem. Who is going to pay?
Yeah. Okay.
Nobody will pay. Even the amount labor is asking for, I will not pay. I don't have it.
Yeah.
Can I sorry.
Mr. Sehale.
Nobody.
Okay.
Just like what he's saying, right? If a company becomes more productive and they make more money, even if they don't increase salaries, you find out that they pay out bonuses, right?
Benefits.
Bonuses most times. Now, we're putting the cart before the horse in this scenario. Government should focus on productivity. If we're able to increase the productivity of the country, which must come through the manufacturing sector, the real sector, if we increase productivity, nobody, all these things that we're arguing about, it won't arise. Yeah, it won't arise. But you see, there got to be, as I said earlier, there's got to be consistent policies, enforced policies, and we must dictate and determine our goal, where we are going with manufacturing. If we are able to do that, the market we have alone is enough for companies in Nigeria.
Now, you talked about policy the other time. My sincere apologies.
Yes.
You talked about policies the other time. Do we have a policy that does not encourage production?
Look at your taxes. If you look at your taxes, for instance, right? I just completed a what do you call it? A business case for the military, right? And it had to do with the DICON Act. Now, you find out when you go to Kaduna, we have this massive facility. But the military has been importing arms since the 60s, and we're not manufacturing. It only took the president, which I commend him, although it started during Buhari's time, right, to pass that the DICON bill, which is now going to enforce the local manufacturing of arms and ammunition in this country. On an average, when I did the maths or the analysis, right, we've been importing over $100 million worth of arms and ammunition every year since the 60s. Mm. Now, just imagine. Meanwhile, when you go to Kaduna, you go to DICON, the facility is there, the assets are there.
Doing nothing.
Yes, it's doing nothing. It has become liability rather than an asset. You understand? Because money keeps being voted for it every year to be maintained. Now, I believe that policies should be passed in all sectors, like what the president did with DICON. That we must not import meters. We must use the locally made meters.
But we had this policy, Mr. Osekale. The government of Gowon at the time made a policy and said, government should only use Nigerian-made or Nigerian-assembled vehicles.
Cars.
Peugeot at the time, in fact, he went as far as Kaduna to commission the Peugeot plant then. Was that policy ever changed?
No, it wasn't changed, but I'll tell you where it failed, right? Remember we talked about the Yom Kippur War, right? Good. From that 1970 to 73 rather, we had the Yom Kippur War in 73 that shot up the price of crude oil to $12 from $1.27 in 1970. By 1979, another event happened again, which was the return of the Ayatollah, right? And the Iran hostage crisis. Now, oil by 1980 with the Iran-Iraq war had reached $34.35. So we had this massive reserve. We had a very strong currency that propelled importation over local manufacturing. Now, one of the disadvantages of a very strong currency is that import becomes cheaper.
Yes.
So because of that, right, those policies started failing. Now, policies are things that you look at scenarios over time, or from time to time, you retweak them, right, just to make sure that you're in touch with the realities of the time. Now, what I believe government should have done then, right, was to make sure that they put tariffs on imported goods to make sure that the local industry still remain relevant. Yeah, but because we had a very strong currency, we had very large, huge reserves, it became very, very easier to import than to manufacture.
It became cheaper.
Yeah, cheaper. And then all our local industries started dying one by one.
Okay. Well, Dr. Shibogu, we're wrapping up now. Everyone will have this unspoken conclusion that it is impossible for the federal government or any state to pay 650,000 naira minimum wage to a cleaner. And of course, it is also a consensus that it is absolutely ridiculous in this economy right now to give anyone a minimum wage of 48,000 naira. Everyone is talking about food. How about school fees? I mean, let's not even go there. So, what would you propose should be the consideration of labor and, just the entire labor force, not just the organized labor movement, the entire labor force, private and public sector? What should be their consideration as they go back to the negotiation table, hopefully next week?
Well, for me, it is not about. I'm not actually enthusiastic about this minimum wage or living wage. I'm particularly concerned about the incentives government should put in place to encourage productivity. Then we can come back to the table to discuss minimum wage. The old minimum wage as it is not even realistic. You're asking for a new one is out of the question. We should ask for incentives and policies that should be reversed, and some that should actually be, totally expunged from our laws to encourage these industries thrive. Once the industries start to thrive, people begin to get incentives, bonuses, and afterwards, labor would have that moral courage to speak to government on what should be the minimum. At the moment, whatever you recommend, nobody will be able to pay. State, governments, local governments, private sector, or the federal government, I know this will be a huge joke.
Okay.
So I can just say boldly, let us go back to the basics.
Okay.
Get the industries working first before you talk about minimum wage.
Okay. So Segal, do you agree with him?
Yeah, I totally agree with him because the productivity increases, nobody will be chasing. We'll not be discussing this. Companies, they themselves will make sure that they pay their workers better. If I make more profit, it's either I pay them out in bonuses or increase salaries.
They don't also forget that labor will contend with you and say the federal government didn't consult us before increasing fuel price, didn't consult us before increasing electricity tariff and all of that.
Yeah, but it's normal, or will I say it's normal in a society. Sometimes the government just takes unilateral decisions without consulting labor, which has happened right now. And I believe that that's one of the things that is putting labor and the government at loggerheads, that you increased the burden of the people, then you should also increase
the benefits of the people.
The benefits of the people.
So that they can cope.
Exactly.
Yes.
Oh, gentlemen, we have to thank you for your time this morning.
Quickly, before we go, I just want to raise a thought. So, minimum wage has been 30,000 naira since the president announced fuel subsidy removal on May 29th, 2023. So those who have been earning 30,000, how have they been coping? Please, we'd like to hear from you.
Yeah.
How have you lived on 30,000 naira for the last almost 12 months?
Well, also to add that about 300% increase in fuel price, 300% increase in electricity tariff, and a stagnant minimum wage. Anyway, thank you so much this morning. Roman Segale is a business intelligence analyst, as well as Dr. Monday Ashibogu, who is a policy analyst and joined us virtually. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. We're back now.
Thank you.
Yes, we're back in a moment for another conversation that concerns you, actually. Just stay with us.
Thank you for staying with us. May 17th of every year is observed as World Hypertension Day.
And that was yesterday, by the way.
And it's been since 2005. The aim is to raise awareness and promote the prevention, early detection, and treatment of hypertension. This is particularly significant in Nigeria, where 1 in every 3 adults, 1 in every 3 has hypertension. It has no symptom. And by the time you begin to know that you have hypertension, it's like you already have one foot in the grave. Hence, many people with this condition are unaware of having it, and only a few of those who are aware are on treatment. Furthermore, most of us who are on treatment do not achieve normal blood pressure, mainly because we do not take our tablets, our pills, regularly. So, how do we deal with hypertension, which is a leading cause of stroke, heart failure, chronic kidney disease, and heart attack, which may result in death or disability? Well, keep your gunpowder dry. We have a doctor in the house who will answer all those questions. Welcome to Sunrise, Dr. Oyewole Kushimo, consultant cardiologist, Lagos University Teaching Hospital, and he's also the Lagos State Coordinator of Nigerian Hypertension Society. Good morning.
Thank you for having me.
So there is such a society?
Yes, there is.
Hypertension Society?
Yes.
Who are the members? Those who have hypertension?
No.
Or those who treat those who have it?
Really those who treat those who have it, who are very medical experts.
The medical
of varying
experts.
specialties that have an interest in hypertension.
Okay. I don't even know where to start because
Well, let me-
you say it has no symptoms.
Well, let me even begin with this. I mean, the shocking information you gave us earlier, that
1 in 3.
of every 3. So one of us here now, the 3 of us here now, one of us.
Present, sir.
And that is not also discountenancing young adults. Is that correct?
No.
The challenge here that I see is there are a whole load of people watching us right now who have no idea
That they have
That they have.
hypertension.
what do we do.
Or rather, what should they do to find out so that they can go get help immediately?
Exactly. Well, that is why we're having this program. That is why we're speaking about it. That's the whole essence of World Hypertension Day, is to create awareness. Because being is a condition that is largely asymptomatic, most people don't know. So the main way that people find out is usually by screening, by incidental, checking of their blood pressure. So what I'll advise is that for people, the whole population should check their blood pressure regularly. So I think that is the only way we can actually detect most people. And we also encourage, even opportunistic opportunities. People should, each time they go to hospital, whether it's for whatever condition, check your blood pressure. You accompany a relation, check your blood pressure. People come to your office to do screening, participate. Check your blood pressure, from time to time. And that's the way I advise people who are watching this program, who are not sure, especially young people that have a family history, that are even at higher risk. If you know one of your parents or both parents have hypertension, then you should be on the alert to check it from time to time.
Why
It can
is
be
that?
inherited.
Yes, there's a genetic
can.
predisposition, we call it. So it is not it's not like sickle cell disease or something that it's so. There are some conditions that are directly head. Yes, you have genes that put you at risk of having hypertension. So there is what we call a genetic predisposition. So it's a risk factor, meaning obviously the fact that your parents are hypertensive doesn't mean you will have it. It's only a percentage, but your chances are higher than somebody who doesn't have parents who are hypertensive. So your risk is higher. Yes. So there is a genetic predisposition.
Of all things to inherit.
Yes, but of course it also depends on your lifestyle and also on environmental factors. All these things come to play. But yes, there is a genetics play a role.
By the way, this is a sidebar kind of topic. There is also something you call hypotension.
Okay.
Right?
Yes, there is.
What is that one, and how does that play in this whole thing?
Well, so first of all, everybody has a blood pressure. So that's one thing people should not. The abnormalities of blood pressure is not having. We need a blood pressure to survive. Everybody has a blood pressure. So, but what we don't want it to be too high, and we also don't want it to be too low. So hypotension just means when your blood pressure is too low. And that is a different condition, entirely, and usually what causes so many things can cause it. But first of all, if somebody is on hypertension, if it's somebody who's hypertensive and who's on drugs and takes an overdose, or the drugs are too high for the person, that is one of a very common reason why you can have hypotension.
Please do not use the word drugs. Please use medication.
Medication is okay. I think, thank you very much for that. It could be misconstrued.
It could be misconstrued. Yes.
So medications, yes. Medications, yes. So taking an overdose of medication, or a medication that is probably too high for that person, that can lead to low blood pressure. That's a very common cause, especially among people who are hypertensive. They can actually go due to over-treatment. But many other disease conditions would have heart problems, for instance. If your heart, because the blood pressure is actually generated by the heart. When the heart pumps blood out of the body, that's what that force, the force of blood pressure is created by the heart. So if your heart is too weak, for instance, those are what we call heart failure, which like the heart's like a pump. And if that heart muscle is a heart muscle pump, and if that pump starts becoming weak, tired, and not pumping as it should, those who have heart failure tend to have low blood pressures. Often people with infections, if you have a very bad infection that has gone into the body, very, very bad, we can have what we call shock, septic shock. That is when you have severe infection that can actually make your blood vessels to dilate, and that causes your blood pressure to go down. Then usually people who are very sick, terminally ill, maybe with cancers, or even with dehydration, for instance. If you have dehydration or you have diarrhea, you lose a lot of body fluids, that can also make you have hypotension. If you have like cholera, for instance, or very severe diarrhea, and you don't replenish the fluids that you're taking, that can make your blood pressure go low. Or if somebody has a road traffic accident and is bleeding, firstly, losing a lot of blood can also make your blood pressure low. So many conditions, many serious ill conditions, and the condition that cause serious illness can make your blood pressure go down.
It sounds like you're saying if anyone has high blood pressure, it sounds like you're saying if anyone has blood pressure, you should go and donate blood.
No, I'm not saying that.
Because you said loss of blood.
Yes, I mean loss of blood, abnormal loss of blood. So if you start losing, if you're bleeding, you have an accident or a wound and it's not being controlled. Of course, going to donation is okay as long as you're a healthy person, you don't have any serious illness. Yes, you can donate blood. They usually will not donate more than a pint in it, and usually it's spaced out. So we don't take too much from people.
Okay, so Sam. Elizabeth is asking, Jonathan Elizabeth is asking, what are the causes and prevention of period-induced hypertension?
Okay. I was going to ask you, what is the cause of hypertension?
Well,
okay. So hypertension. First of all, there are two broad types of hypertension. The first type, which is the most common type, is what we call essential or primary hypertension, which is hypertension that most people have that is not due to any particular organ abnormality in the body, like a kidney problem or hormonal imbalance causing it. It's usually the type that most people have, and this is called primary hypertension. And it is what we call multifactorial, meaning it is due to many risk factors come into play to have it. We talked about genes earlier, having the genetic predisposition. You have relations who have hypertensive, that can one. Then your lifestyle, maybe being overweight or not being physically active enough, or dietary indiscretion, taking too much salt in the diet, and all these things can their interplay can come in. And obviously even environmental, air pollution and all that. So all these things can come in together to make you have hypertension. So that's the type that most people have. In 90% of the case, or 95%, most people have this primary hypertension, whereby it's a mixture of different risk factors coming together. And sometimes we really just don't know. People just develop hypertension. But then the other smaller percentage of type of hypertension, that is called secondary. That is, someone has a kidney problem, they now develops high blood pressure. That's what we call secondary hypertension. That is, probably has some abnormality in an organ in the body that now causes the BP to go up. But most people, what they have is the primary type, in which you have risk factors coming into play, and we can't really identify a specific cause to it, but the blood pressure is simply high.
But how about the period-induced one that Jonathan Elizabeth is asking?
Okay, well, so the thing is, that will have to be looked into, and because people who have, who are undergoing periods, of course, with the hormonal changes that occur, people can have, different things can go on in the body, and perhaps one of these, or maybe, they can have some kind of, like when one is under stress, you have some hormones that are being released. Maybe that could contribute to BP going up transiently and all that. But such people really have to be monitored, because what we call hypertension really is sustained hypertension that is there all the time, and that is not something that just comes up transiently and goes. So if somebody is having sometimes some people can have illnesses like a very transient, maybe they're sick in the hospital, or one is about to go for an operation. Sometimes periods of acute stress can make the BP go up transiently and all that. But hypertension that we really emphasize is that what we call sustained elevation, BP being sustained all the time, not just when I'm sick or when I'm having some abnormality transiently, but BP that's there all the time. That is the real hypertension that we focus on.
At what age should one begin to pay attention to one's blood pressure and check it on a fairly regular basis?
Okay, so now the thing is that there is no, I would say, clear-cut fixed age. What I would also say generally is that the older you get, obviously, the higher your chances of developing hypertension. So obviously, the older you get, it is more important to check it more frequently. But actually, people of all ages, people who are even children can have hypertension, something to know. Of course, their hypertension tends to be more the secondary type, maybe children that have some problem with their kidneys or some specific genetic or hormonal imbalance. Yes, they can have. So when sometimes you have childhood hypertension, it all does exist, which is why even children, if they go to hospital for different for conditions, so different, their blood pressure is actually checked. But of course, the incidence of primary hypertension is much lower in children. So which is why, of course, we tend to emphasize adults more because they are at higher risk. But actually, people of all ages really, if they have the chance, yes, check up BP from time to time. But I would say the older you get, it becomes more important to check it more regularly.
Okay. What about the issue of an enlarged heart?
Okay.
Most athletes have enlarged hearts. Does that have anything to do with developing hypertension?
Not directly, no. No, so in the case of athletes, now having an enlarged heart can be due to many things, but in the case of athletes, it's actually an adaptation of the body, physiological adaptation. The body is trying to adapt to that, his athleticism, and actually is doing that so that he can be much more fitter and make them more, to make the heart more efficient so that they can do more, than the average person. So it's actually the body. If somebody who is an athlete who really does a lot of exercise, like marathon runners, very, professional athletes, the body, the heart kind of adapts so that he can even do more than he normally does. So the heart could enlarge a bit or thicken slightly, and then also the heart rate can also go down. These are physiological changes. That if the person stops doing the athleticism, it stops becoming an athlete and starts being a normal person, all those things are actually reversible. So they can actually, yes, it's reversible.
So the large-heartedness will come down?
Yes, can come down, yes. So it's something that we don't consider it's an adaptation. They're not ill. The body is adapting to that condition, and it's also reversible. But of course, different from those who have enlarged heart because of disease conditions like alcoholism or even hypertension. Over time, can make your heart get enlarged. That's a different scenario. But
you keep
in the case
emphasizing
of athletes,
professional athlete. I know some people who are not professional athletes and yet have enlarged hearts.
Yes, you're right. Yes. They may. No. So, yes. So you can have, as I said, you can have your heart can be enlarged. Exercise, vigorous exercise is not the only reason why your heart can get enlarged. So that's when I say professionally, or even somebody who's not a professional but is doing, maybe he jogs 3 hours every day, for instance. You have such people. Yeah. Every morning before they go to work, 2 hours, they do that. Such a person is behaving like an athlete who does, So such people call this athletic conditioning. So even if you're not an athlete, as long as you do vigorous exercise a lot daily, like an athlete would do, like a professional athlete would do, yes, you can. Those changes can also occur. I have patients who are just bankers or normal people who jog so often that their pulse are actually low and they have these changes. But they are reversible. They are things that over time can go back. We don't consider it as an abnormality per se, as something to be treated. It's part of the...
Nothing to be treated?
Yes, we don't. But we have to differentiate it from the other type, which is due to maybe hypertension or due to other problems. That is a different matter.
Okay.
Now, 2 things. Is it curable?
Hypertension? So, for the vast majority of people, it is not curable. It is what we call treatable and controllable.
Okay.
But however, as I said, those 5% that have secondary hypertension, if you treat that problem that is causing it, yes, potentially the BP can go. But those are just 5%. For most people who have the primary type, it is something that we manage, we control. And we don't consider it curable. Yes.
So how is the management or control done?
Okay, so it's done in 2 broad ways. So we can use, lifestyle measures and we can use medications. And lifestyle measures is what we always start with, especially people whose blood pressures are not very marked, just mildly elevated. And even everybody who has hypertension too, we are advised to these lifestyle measures. And of course, they include taking care of your diet, increasing the amount of vegetables and fruits you take because they have potassium, which helps to lower blood pressure, and also taking reducing your salt intake, not taking excessive salt, and that also helps to to improve the blood pressure. Being physically active, physical activity, not being sedentary, not just sitting down in the office the whole day and then you drive your car and then you sit at home. So we want people to walk around, so to do moderate exercise, like maybe 2.5 to 3 hours in combined in a whole week, or 1 hour of vigorous exercise a week. That is encouraged to stay active. And then also, of course, shunning away from harmful things like smoking, avoiding alcohol if possible, or taking just moderate quantity. So these are measures that we advocate, and they can actually help to lower the blood pressure to some extent. And also those who are on drugs, medications, it can actually make the medications work better. Then, of course, the second major way is to using medications, which is obviously done by a healthcare practitioner who will now prescribe. Usually on top of these lifestyle measures, we now add medications. And then these medications, of course, some people can start with 1 or 2, and sometimes, unfortunately, you need 3 or 4, depending on the level of control. But what we try to do these days is, because control is a problem. People get tired of taking drugs for so long. So measures are being taken, for instance, to make combination pills. Those who need to use 3 or 4 drugs, we now have companies that make 2 drugs in 1 tablet. We call them fixed dose, single pill combination. So that also helps to, tolerance, so that people, they're not swallowing so many tablets. And we try to, encourage this also. So these are the 2 broad ways, we combine lifestyle measures and medications.
Well, Elizabeth is back. Jonathan, Elizabeth is back. Based on the period-induced hypertension, should one be on medication? Because the blood pressure returns to normal after the period.
So, I would say in such a scenario, it's not a one size fits all. So it first of all depends on what the person means, how high does it go, and so I would say in such a person, we need to take a holistic review. The person has to be fully evaluated. We need to first check, for instance, whether you have any signs that hypertension has damaged the body, what's the risk profile, what other conditions you have, and what's the level of this blood pressure. Because if the blood pressure during the period just rises to very, very, just slightly above the normal, you may not need to use medications, for instance. You can start lifestyle while we monitor and see the trend. Because it's something that is varying, and we also do average. If you have a person who has blood pressure that is going up and down, we can check it. We can do what we call a 24-hour measurement with a special machine, or we can do blood pressure at home and we'll take an average. So if the average is not elevated, the person may not even need to be on medication. So it actually depends, So it's not something that I can just give a fixed.
Another leg to that is pregnancy-induced hypertension. Mm-hmm. Are they similar?
Yeah, so pregnancy-induced hypertension is something that does occur, and usually would occur in people towards the second half of their pregnancy. So beyond 20 weeks, usually most pregnancies last, around 37, 38, between 37 to 40 weeks. But around the midpoint, around 20 weeks, some women can develop hypertension because of certain things that happen in pregnancy, the hormones that have been produced, and some conditions can lead to what we call pregnancy-induced hypertension. Usually in such women, we monitor them very closely because, and depending on the level, they may need to also be on medications. If the level is very high, they are monitored very closely because it can lead to complications. Most often, if it's truly pregnancy-induced, it actually resolves. So usually about 6 weeks after pregnancy, many of these women with blood pressure actually goes back to normal. And if that happens, we stop medications and we monitor them, because what has been shown is that people who are pregnancy-induced hypertension, they're also at risk of developing sustained, chronic hypertension, we call it, the usual hypertension later in life. So
after having...
Yes. Okay. So even if it goes to normal, we monitor them, we advise them to check it, from time to time, because they could also develop hypertension in the future. But usually pregnancy-induced is something that can actually resolve on its own once pregnancy is over. If it's truly pregnancy-induced, it can go back to normal, and then we observe them, and they live their normal lives after pregnancy.
How are you coping with the management of your patients who have hypertension now, especially in light of the fact that the cost of drugs has hit the roof?
Yes, it is a big problem. It is. I mean, our patients are really, because these are drugs that they need to take for the long term. They have to. So what we are doing, daily. So it is a challenge, and I must say. So one thing we are doing, of course, first of all, I think one thing that should be encouraged is we need locally produced drugs. Because one thing we realize is that the few that are not, there are some actually locally produced.
Manufacturing
and the price
sector not being encouraged in Nigeria right now.
Yes, unfortunately.
Most manufacturing companies are shutting down.
Exactly. No, but what I'm saying is, we have some Nigerian companies that make drugs. Okay. So it's actually something that some people are not even aware of. We had this discussion even on our platform where somebody asked, are there any drugs that are produced by Nigerian companies? And there was a long list that I realized, wow, we do actually have, some companies that are actually making drugs locally.
That have the right ingredients.
Yes. So they are available. They're not all the brands are available. I've been looking for that. A good number. Actually, the common ones, like amlodipine, for instance, there are some that are locally produced by registered companies. And what I would realize the cost difference tends to be is quite significant. So this is one of the measures. But what I'm advocating is really we need more of this, and so that we can have that more affordable drugs. Well, obviously another thing is healthcare coverage. We are also pleading that the government, universal health coverage, people to have more access to health insurance. This will go a long way. But it is a challenge, and I must say it is a challenge. People are complaining. So a lot of times, people who are using expensive drugs, they complain. We have to look for cheaper alternatives. Some, even those cheaper alternatives, they are struggling. So it is a challenge, I must say. But we are looking for means and ways to see how we can help our patients.
You were talking about high blood pressure, low blood pressure, and there is that endless contestation about the average. Almost every advert you see, you see 120 over 80 as the average. In fact, some say that is it. If you don't get 120 over 80, forget it. You are either too high or too low. Is there such a thing?
Okay, so let me make some clarifications. So we have what is called, the level of 120/80 is what, well, we could refer to as, you could say, ideal or physiological blood pressure, ideal, blood pressure.
For adults.
But that is not, but however, it doesn't mean everybody has to have exactly that figure. So that is, then above, now, the cutoff for hypertension is 140/90. So what that means is your blood pressure is 125 or 75, you're doing fine. But no, there's no need to panic, no need to, because actually blood pressure is also something that, goes up and down. So it's not something, so we have that range in which, in fact, we say optimal blood pressure, normal, 120 is still regarded as normal blood pressure. When you're about between 130 and 139, then we say, okay, this is getting borderline. So between 120 and 130 is still considered normal. Even though, yes, there's 120 is like, okay, ideal, but 120, 129 is actually considered normal. So if you have your BP is 125, you don't need to panic. You don't need to bring it down. And even getting too low, below 120 is also not even encouraged. When somebody is hypertensive and we're treating, we don't even want it to go below 120. We don't want it to go too low, because if you bring it too low, that also leads to issues. So the issue of, yes, some textbooks, will put it there as ideal blood pressure, but it doesn't mean everybody has to have that. Between 120 and 129 is still considered.
What if someone now has 140/100?
Yes, so that is...
You said 140, right?
No, that's the cutoff for high blood pressure.
Okay.
You understand? So one is ideal or average blood pressure if you take many normal people, but what is the cutoff where we say that, okay, this blood pressure is too high, or hypertension is 140?
Okay.
Yes.
If it's 140
and above,
too high.
140 and above.
And above is
from 140
too high.
is too high. That is where we need to start considering treatment.
Okay. Now, talk to us about this fig. There are various kinds. I saw one. You use on the wrist, and someone is saying you have to level it to your heart and all those things. Are there some that people shouldn't consider? I know we are out of time, so you have 30 seconds.
Okay, very good. So what we encourage is we prefer, the blood pressure prefers the one that by the arm, the arm with the cuff properly sized, not too big, not too small. And then for those who use at home, they can use the digital electronic ones, is okay, and you can use to monitor and all that. And then so that is fine. The mercury fig is something which is being phased out because of environmental issues, but that's actually the best, the most accurate, but it's being phased out. But the electronic one is okay, but we prefer the arm. And what the people can do is they can validate. There are many brands, use validated ones. You can go online, stridebp.org. You can go and check whether your brand is validated, has been validated by regulatory authorities.
So don't wait till you faint or something before you go and check your blood pressure. From the age of 20, you should start having your blood pressure checked. The doctor didn't say that, I'm the one saying. So be safe. Start checking, because it will not give you any symptom. Don't forget that. There are no symptoms. Happy Hypertension Day.
Thank you very much. Same to you.
Dr. Oyewole Kushiwo, consultant cardiologist, Lagos University Teaching Hospital, and he's also the Lagos State Coordinator, Nigerian Hypertension Society. I need to take a break. See you after this break, and we shall learn what we should do to bring up our boy children better. See you in just a moment.
Gentleman. They start from boys. So what does it take to raise a boy? Most of the time we talk about the girl child and all of that. But we need to raise a guy or the girl. So one question, many answers. That's the scenario. Why is the act of raising boys seen as a handful or a hardship as opposed to raising girls? You haven't seen my daughter.
Oh, she's worse than... Well, actually, looking back now, I must have been just as bad as the boys. I have a reason, because 5 boys came before me. So I had to do what they did. They were the only ones I had to emulate.
My girl is preceded by 3 other girls, so...
Oh, she has no excuse.
Even the boy is gentler.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
So, it was International Boy Child's Day a few days ago, and the questions are endless about raising the boy child. Many men are talking about the need to give more attention to men now as opposed to because of the way they are treating their women. So let's have conversations this morning with Amina Yusuf Ali, who is lead coach, Timeless Soul Incorporated. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Oh, welcome. It's my pleasure to be here. Good morning.
Do you agree with her?
Why were you shaking your head when I was talking about me coming after 5 boys?
Oh, no, and then you are blessed with the same kind of energy that you are used to. So there's no doubt about you being able to cope. You know, they say that God will never give you more than you can handle. So he actually gave you exactly what you could handle.
Oh, well, after she grew up with 5 boys, she now has 2 boys. Management is proud of you.
Very proud. Thank you.
Why is this an issue, really?
I think we are now realizing the loss of balance in the idea of what empowerment really means. Empowerment, whether it comes from the career-wise or home front, we are now realizing that so much hulabaloo has gone into girl child empowerment, and then the boys are now like, okay, the kind of sentiments. The boys are now finding that it's easier to just watch the women be all and end all and have everything, and then you come back home and then there's nothing for you. So what do? In my practice, what I see daily are women who are fed up with the lack of creative expression of boys, of their men, and the lack of drive that seems to permeate around men, like, you know, whatever would be kind of idea. And on the flip side is that you're having boys who seem to feel like, oh, if there are 2 people vying for the same position in a company, just to make the quota of the girl child empowerment, they would rather pick the lady, whether or not she, you know, it could be a rumor, it could be a thought, an idea, but it just seems like there's no point fighting the system on that side. Yeah. And they're just tired of trying to waddle through.
But don't you find the need to explain to them why they became such a fuss about the girl child? Because the girl child had been put down forever. She was the one who had to go to the kitchen. She was the one who had to sweep, because boys don't do housework. And all that kind of talk that we grew up with.
Oh, yes. I mean, there's no doubt that there was a need for the girl child empowerment to start. But at what expense should it go on right now? I think that's the major question the boys are now asking, in terms of rather understanding why they have to be the second citizen. Can't we all just be citizens, so to speak, in that sense?
So have we arrived at that point where we should all just be citizens?
I think we've left that point a long time ago. Because as at the time that 20 years ago, when we were overemphasizing the need for the girl child, the Beijing conference, when we were actually advocating for the women child, the women and the girl child to be prominent in places, we should have also paid attention to the fact that we're not just giving birth to girls. The boys were there, and they were watching, and they were feeling left behind, and they were also feeling outplaced and, you know, misconstrued in so many reasons. It's part of the things that, of course, sometimes it's not just about the global space, it's also the home space, even the feeling that you get in terms of, the Africanness of when you have a boy and everybody goes, the man has beaten the woman, and then if it's the girl, and it's like, oh, well, try again until you have a boy.
Yeah, all
it
that
doesn't
is
seem to be like
on.
you've had that. It's fading off. We've moved past that point right now, such that, I mean, in most homes, you have 2 boys, you could have 2 girls, and everybody's moving fine.
You can have 2 girls, you can have 4 girls, and
everybody's fine with
yes.
that, because we have the idea that, a woman can stand on her own. I know, my name is Amina, Sally. I still carry my papa name, enter my marriage name one way or the other, and it's okay, as opposed to 25 years ago, when that could have been misconstrued as a disrespect to my husband's family. In that way, like, why would you want to do that? But now we are recognizing that the reason for the boy child advocacy, and this is not to also dismiss the need to still focus on girl empowerment, is basically to recognize that boys need attention just as much as girls need attention, because they're still children.
Perhaps one of the issues that we've had there is that, I'll go back to what she said. Over focusing on the gender of the children. Yeah. You had a conference in the course of the week.
Absolutely.
And how was that, by the way?
Oh, it was beautiful.
Okay.
Still repping the red, as you can see.
So
it was beautiful.
Perhaps one of the challenges there is the segregation from the get-go. This boy is 2 or 3 or 5, and you are asking him to sleep and sit down while you are asking the girl to go do stuff. Okay, you raise the girl to be a lot more responsible, and the guy to just sit down, fold his arms, and read newspapers like his dad.
So in my family, I'm the last of 5 children. I had 3 sisters and 1 brother, and they can all cook the same. So I don't have that kind of experience that you're talking about. And maybe my mom was just way ahead of her time. But I also have friends whose parents are kind of versatile. But you see, it's not the idea that the boys don't know what to do or don't have the life skills. It's that they watch their parents, their father, particularly, just sit down. And they can't wait to say, after when I get married, that's how my wife...
That's how I'm going to be sitting.
Yes, that's how my wife will be sitting down to serve me so I can relax. So it is not that we haven't tried to get our boys to get more involved in the house chores and all that. It is also that we also haven't paid attention to their emotional and psychological needs well enough to recognize that as parents, we may be wounding them in terms of the comparison. If because you are a boy, there are certain things that you are not expected to do. Cry, for instance.
We'll come back to more of that in a bit, but just a quick information to our viewers on DSTV that you will now be joining the commissioning of the new Bauchi State Government House complex at the Government House Square in Bauchi State. But of course, this program will continue on all other platforms, so please join us then if you will. So you're going to Bauchi State if you are on DSTV, but on other platforms. And if you want to join us, but you want to stay with us, you can just go on YouTube. We're with us right there now. Now, madam, we have identified the errors that we've been making over the years. As crossing lines that we shouldn't cross, giving undue attention or not giving undue attention, or perhaps even giving privileges that are undeserved. What have been the consequences over time, and how do we begin to reassess ourselves?
So the consequences of in the imbalance in attention, whether it's over or under, as the case may be, the consequence has been we have more men who are struggling with their emotions and being able to meet other people's emotional needs. So fantastically, we'll have men who are quite adept in their intellectual and cognitive expressions. But when it comes to creative and emotional expressions, they may struggle a bit. They may struggle with relationship needs as well. Their own needs and the needs of their spouses particularly. They may struggle with not being able to express their own emotions, with their own words, what they need and what they want from their spouses. They also struggle to give their children attention, because again, it is meant that what they've seen over time is that the man is far removed from the home front, is just an observer, while the child linked towards the mother. So everything that has to do with behavioral challenges or behavioral upbringing, it is left with the mother to just do and say whatever it is. Because, I mean, I grew up with this Yoruba adage that says, "Omoto dati ye." Meaning that the child who is well brought up is actually the pride of the father. But the one that has behavioral challenges, go look for the mother in that sense. And this in itself tells us that when you look at the boy child, you're looking at how well the child has able to comport himself or compose himself when it comes to outward appearances, meeting the strategic and structural needs of the family. But very rarely the relationship and the interactions or interrelationship needs of the family, because best way to do that is to be absent or to be quiet.
You know, I like to think of children as some kind of canvas. And you have to paint on what you want. When you take a stump of wood, you as a sculptor only have an idea of what you want to make of it.
Absolutely.
But in most cases, we just tend to allow this mold, this canvas, to just run free. We are told quite a number of ways that the Muslim, for instance, would raise their children. That there's a Yoruba proverb to the effect. We've also been told about Jews or Hebrews that, look, when you get to a certain age, there are certain things that are expected of you as a boy.
Yeah.
Now, this is all speaking to vision, or rather visioning for the children. Do you think we have that culture? Is that a problem? Because what we have spoken about so far is, cultural influences that have gone on for so long. Now, how do we begin to redress this in a way that we can say, okay, this child, if you go this way, maybe you do better, and not allow them to just run free in any environment that they find themselves in?
I think also in that sense of recognizing our culture and the influence it played in the raising up of our boys is to know that whether you're a Muslim or a Jew or a Christian, of course, the physiological differences between having a boy and a girl is there. You can't avoid it, right? However, it is also left for us to understand that as our culture, as African cultures, tells us that our men are our protectors. Protection doesn't just come from arms bearing alone. It doesn't just come from all that they're providers. It doesn't just mean that you have to bring money or provide shelter alone. It also means that protection is that you can preserve the dignity of the people that you're living with. Provision also means that you can emotionally provide connection and ambience, a space for being able to express yourself fully in that household as a man in that sense. So yes, our cultural influences affect the way we raise our boys and our girls, but it also gives us room to understand the changes that we're seeing as we grow, the technological advancement, the digital advancement, as well as the interactions that we're having on a larger platform, on a global scale, on how to manage the affairs between us. So I believe that the most important part of helping the boy child starts from the home in itself. What kind of vision, like you mentioned, the family have for their children? Are they being raised to be humanly responsible, not gender specifically responsible? Are we looking at helping them to be conscious of the different gender needs, but at the same time, the humanistic locus or loci that makes us connect on the platform of, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or you're female. Yes, I would respect you because you're a creature just like me, a creation just like me, and you are filled with essence just as I am.
Okay,
on that basis.
There's something you said earlier before we made the announcement of going to Bauchi State the other time, you talked about the girls, the boys not being allowed to cry.
Yeah.
Essentially saying the USB that they used to cry, we remove it. The flash drive, software of crying, we remove it from them. So, how do we help children, especially the boys, stay real and true to their emotions without being tagged, quote unquote, sissy?
It's really challenging, but it's not impossible. Because again, the first place it starts from is removing that USB yourself, where it has told you that a boy should not cry beside you. I mean, when you walk into a room and you find two children crying, one is a boy and one is a girl, who are you most likely to comfort? You've got strength to just carry one. Who would you gravitate towards?
Even if you had friends trying to carry two.
You would most likely gravitate towards, oh, why are you crying, and then you are telling the boy to be a man, it's okay, it's enough in that sense. So we first have to reparent our mindset and that understanding that, these are children. They have the same emotional needs, they have the same psychological needs, they have the same attention needs from their parents just as much. And in that is also helping them to recognize that when they are using their voice, that we listen, regardless of what age or what gender that they are in that moment. And when they are requesting attention, we notice that it is not because, she's a girl that she's asking this, and it is not because it's a boy that is behaving this way. It is because they are humans in that sense. And that's where we can actually begin to move away from that emotional restriction of boys don't cry or big boys don't cry in that sense.
Something has just come in, and it says, it's from Ndubisi Onwaha. Thanks, madam, for speaking up for the boy child today. I've always seen the extreme imbalance in the one-sided push to improve the lives of girls, the lives of the girl child, without any attention to the lives of the boys. Ndubisi, that is not true. I mean, you are saying
Says the mother of boys. Thank you very much. But that is Ndubisi's position, by the way, from YouTube, is consistent with what we have been talking about all the while. Yeah. But there are parents listening now and watching who need to do different, so to speak. So what should they be doing different?
Ask your children what they need first and foremost, not on the basis of whether they are boys or girls, because if you are like, because I'm a mother, I can guess what my girl child needs faster, then because I'm a father, I can get what my son needs faster. No, it's about taking away the blueprint you grew up with for a minute and pay attention to what is available right now and ask them what have I been doing that you like? I always say lead with 3 questions. What have I been doing that you like? What have I been doing that you struggle with because of how I share it with you? And in what areas do you think I can improve on? Those 3 questions on the basis of them being children, not them being boys or girls, actually gives them that opportunity to say, you know what, sometimes, I found a 17-year-old who says, you know what, he's talking to his 20-year-old sister. That, I'm the Dawojo of this family, so you still have to respect me at the end of the day, Yes. But the point then is, who gave him that idea? Where did that come from? Well, perhaps from the parents, or perhaps from even the grandparents sometimes, in how they share some of the stories in the family. But it all boils down back to teach them what it means to be human. Teach them what it means to relate with one another on the basis of respect. Then we can now begin to talk about the gender differences and whatnot.
In my generation, there's somebody that I played tennis with, and I am 1 month, exactly 4 weeks older than he is. And every time I call him my aburo, him and all his friends, in the village, when we talk, you cannot talk. You may be older, but you cannot talk.
Well, the difference between them, the difference then is you weren't in the village at the time. Well, probably at some.
Well, they still try to shut me up, even in Lagos.
Well, but that
which is not a village.
Then maybe they came with village mentality. We have to go now. Thank you so much for your time on the program this morning. Well, this is another starter conversation. But I think the most important thing, the point that has been made here today, is to stop categorizing children into dockets.
Yeah.
Male child, female child, and all of that.
Child is child.
Child is child. At birth, child is child, and everything else follows from there. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Amina Yunus Ali is a lead coach, Timeless Soul Incorporated. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much.
Just before we take the final home stretch, let's take the wrap.
Teo and Alero, and yes, this is the wrap on Sunrise, your quick roundup of the week in the showbiz space. My name is Abidemi Dairo, and I think we should just go straight into it, shall we? So it's another good day for Nigerian entertainment industry as top Nigerian artists again shine on the international music platform with 9 nominations in 7 categories in the 2024 BET Awards. Grammy winners Burna Boy and Tems, 2014 BET winner Davido, Maven singer Ayra Starr, Asake from YBNL, Lil J, and Sheyi Vibes all received nominations in different categories. Ayra Starr leads the Nigerian contingent with 3 nominations for Best New Artist, Best African Act, and Best Her for the single, Self-professed African giant will compete in the Best Male Hip-Hop Artist and Best Male R&B Pop Artist categories, while Tems also received nods for Best Video and Best Gospel Inspirational Song for the track Me and You. Davido and Lil J earned a nomination for the Viewer's Choice Award, courtesy of their appearance on Chris Brown's Sensational. And what a week it has been for controversial singer Habib Okikiola, popularly known as Portable, as he dominates news headline yet again for his off-music antics. He jumped on the trends table after a video of him trying to resist arrest went viral. He was later put into custody for allegedly refusing to pay the balance of a G-Wagon vehicle he purchased from a car dealer. Police spokesperson in Lagos State, Benjamin Hundeyin, told Channels Television that the singer was granted bail on Wednesday after passing Tuesday night in police custody. And less than 24 hours after, the Zazu crooner further ignited social media with a snippet of his upcoming song titled Spider-Man, which detailed his recent arrest. Meanwhile, the family of late actor Junior Pope has buried the 43-year-old who died last month. Images from the event, which held at St. Peter's Catholic Parish in Enugu State, show the actor's inconsolable wife, children, and loved ones at the funeral service, all dressed in black. The actor sadly passed away in a tragic boat accident that claimed the lives of 4 others on April 10th. He and the crew were on their way back from a movie location when their boat capsized on the Anam River in Anambra State. Finally, on the wrap today, the buzz around the 10th AMVCA still hangs around, with conversation going from the big win of the movie Breath of Life to Wale Ojo's dance celebration video at the awards after party. And his small puff hairstyle, which he explained was inspired in a spur of the moment.
Oh, my hair? Okay, everyone's going crazy about my hair, right? Okay, listen, Listen, I was chilling out in one of my Coded hotels in Lagos, and you know that video. So I was watching the telly, you know, the big, and I saw Trace TV. I was enjoying the pop video, and I saw this kid guy with all this. I said, come, I have enough here to do it like that now. It was like a brainwave 2 nights ago. So I called my barber, and we did it.
Well, that's all we have time for on the wrap today. Sunrise continues with Ayo and Alero. But before we go, remember that you can follow us on all the social media handles showing on your screen. My name is Abidemi Dairo, and I'll see you again next time.
You are right now the one that is very, very interesting right now on the screen. Now, everyone would have thought you are probably the guest of the week because you are also on Tinsel. We're just saying, right? But it's not you.
No.
Yes, I know it's not you.
It's not me.
You're not that important right now. Our artist today is an actor, television presenter, voiceover artist, or what they call voice actors. Yewande Same is here with us. Thank you for
Thank you for having me.
Look at that smile.
I'm hearing some voices. I'm hearing some voices. I'm sure that voice is going to come on. How have you been?
Very well, considering the situation.
What situation? What situation? What situation?
Oh, everything costs now. Everything costs in Nigeria.
E.g. what?
Everything costs. Everything costs. Expensive.
Saying it like this, down there.
But yes, very well, very well.
You're also a skilled musician, dancer, and how is that going? You want to give us a dance?
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Yes, I'm trained for stage, so I'm a creative artist, I'm a performing artist, and with that you have to be able to do everything. Well, there's an advantage when you can sing, dance, act, so yes.
Do you have that moment also where you just go crazy, like what we saw from the rap about Wale Ojo just did?
Creatives are like that. Yes, creatives can wake up and it could be something that comes to you whilst you're asleep. Creatives are like that, you know. We get given all kinds of inspirations at odd times.
What's the craziest that you have done?
The craziest thing I've done is move to Nigeria after being born and bred in the UK my entire life. And just moved to Lagos.
That?
Oh, to school?
This is home?
Oh no, it's I've been the only one, so that tells me that it's a bit crazy.
But how have you found it, though?
There's something about Lagos that it equips you, it shapes you. You find yourself, it's like you're thrown into a fire and you just have to kind of just firm, you know, and just find your way around things. So it's been, I've been shaped. I can say I've been shaped.
You are shaped.
And you're liking it.
Yes.
And you're liking
it. Yes. I'm liking it.
Okay.
That's why I'm still here.
Well, you went out of your way to study creative arts. So you're not one of those veterinary medicine graduates.
No, I've always known that this was for me. Yes, I've always known.
Always, as far back as when?
As far back as, I would say I made the decision at age 14. But in secondary school, that was the one thing I excelled at. Like I did extremely well. It was the only class that didn't bore me, drama. It was the only class, well, that and religious studies actually, but English too. But drama, I was always, my primary school teacher actually called me drama queen, and that was my name, and everybody would call me a drama queen.
Which drama is this one?
That is The Theory of Breakfast. We just wrapped up on Africa Magic. It's an Africa Magic original. So
Theory of Breakfast.
The Theory of Breakfast. So breakfast, I'm not sure if you've heard a Burna Boy song. Doncaster, slash, everybody go chop breakfast. So we say breakfast it means you've been served. When your heart is broken, Yeah, you've been served breakfast. So in this show, it was
heartbreak.
Yeah, love triangles, just showing the different aspects. No, it's a drama. Yes, it's a series.
Okay.
It's a series, but we've ended it now. So hopefully there'll be a season 2. Not sure, but yes, it was just. So many of us just chopping breakfast, as they say. So they gave me a la carte. Yes, yes, that was my wedding day. So,
wow!
Yes.
And he didn't show up.
Yeah, we didn't even get as far as the altar. We didn't get to the altar. He served me hot breakfasts. Yes.
A la carte.
He served me a la carte. So, and yes, that's me. And she played my on-screen cousin, Moet Abebe. She's phenomenal. She's really lovely. So she also chopped her own breakfast. And she got it.
Abebe.
Yes, Abebe. Yes.
And
yes.
what's the lesson in that particular one?
This in Theory of Breakfast, it's relatable. Everybody can relate. There's somebody everybody can relate to. Well, actually, has you and they chopped breakfast? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I've really experienced what she experienced, but we've all had, we've all experienced love and all the things that come with love. So it's very relatable, yes. Okay. And it'll teach you what to do when you to know when somebody's about to serve you breakfast.
Now, you've always known you wanted to do this that you do. Going professional would be a different ballgame, right?
Aside education, you mean? Yes, because with education, I think for creatives, they don't really warn the students on how hard it is when you're thrown into the deep end and to chase your dreams, because it's just a very small percentage that actually do get to make it after school. So it is very, very.
What does it take?
It's challenging. Determination, and also, I know that sounds so cliche, but it really does take determination, because wanting to be an actor means sometimes being out of work. Sometimes you have nothing going on, but you just have to be determined, look for more work. And you might be seeing people that you went to school with doing extremely well, but you just have to just hold it down and just wait for that one big opportunity.
So you've done stage.
Yes.
Now you're doing
film, television.
What's the difference? Which one do you feel more?
Stage. I'd love
What's
to say.
What's wrong with all these people?
No,
every one of you guys prefer stage.
I'll be very honest. There's something about stage that you don't experience on film, but there's something with film that you can experience on stage. But with stage, stage is live. There's no stop,
even your mistake becomes a performance on stage.
Yes. We've had times where somebody has missed their line or missed their cue.
Or missed their movement.
Yes, missed the movement, and it's collaborative. It's a collaborative effort. You have to step in and just not let the audience know. So stages, film, you can easily cut and just
I'll share an experience.
Take it too.
Yeah. I mean, I was playing a role of the Holy Ghost in one movie, in one stage performance.
Oh, wow.
And my colleague was playing the devil.
Oh, wow.
I missed my movement. And the devil came to move the Holy Ghost.
Not the other way around.
Oh my God.
Not the other way around.
It was in the 90s. So, but then there's another interesting thing. We've seen you in an urban series, Breakfast. Theory of Breakfast. But then you've also been an epic, Yalode. Tell us the difference. What did the difference do to you? Coming from the UK.
From the UK, I've always been a lover of the Yoruba culture. So I won't say it was strange to me. I grew up watching a lot of, and I grew up in Sele, so it's a Yoruba church. So I grew up in a Yoruba church. I grew up watching Yoruba movies, and a lot of those epic Yoruba movies,
I'm assuming you watched Efunsheta Aniwura.
I actually don't know that one.
Oh gosh.
Oh, I'll have to look for it on YouTube. But yeah.
Keep going.
Maybe I did, and I don't remember the name. But so I grew up watching Yoruba movies, and then to be a part, to actually be in front of the camera and work on an epic was an absolute dream come true with Funmilayo Ransom Kuti. So it's not all in Yoruba. It's not all in Yoruba.
Do you
it's
speak
in English.
Yoruba?
My mom says I speak like an Igbo person, but I do. No man saw Yoruba. Only so. With a man saw.
Okay, so you speak it with an accent.
I speak with an Igbo accent.
According to your mother.
According to my mother. But yes, it was. That's just the difference was I just couldn't believe I had finally gotten the moment to be part of an epic, part of a Yoruba story, and it was just.
How did it feel?
Thrilling, inspiring. Before I moved to Nigeria, I was so sure I'd be doing so many charitable works and helping others. And then you kind of get mixed. You get into the mix, the rat race, and you're thinking of yourself. And I forgot about all those aspirations I had to help others. So this movie was so important, and kind of like there was it was reignited, all those, I want to help others and advocate for other people. So that's what it did for me. It did for me to not just think of myself, to remember, what my thoughts or what my plans were before. It's very inspiring, very, very inspiring film.
And I dare say provocative as well, because even when we were speaking with Bolanle Austin Peters last week, one of the things that we discovered is that we don't even know our stories.
We don't.
Young people don't know the Nigerian story.
We don't.
How do you feel about it? How does that make you feel?
It's saddening. And I was just telling someone that even as parents, we don't do enough for our children I'm not a parent, but parents, my generation, we don't do enough for our children to know our culture, because sometimes we don't even know ourselves. I went to Unilag for a year, and I remember the name Funmilayo Ransom Kuti. It was the name of a close in Unilag, and I didn't know. I just said, "Oh, Fela's mom."
Was.
Oh, I said that must be Fela's mom.
Full stop.
Full stop. And that was that. And to know that she was
This is you in the series, right?
Yes. This is Funmilayo Ransom Kuti. This is us.
Okay.
Oh no, this is on set. Yes.
Okay.
This is in Abeokuta. Yeah, this is Abeokuta. So not knowing that was way more than that. She was an activist. She was a teacher. She was a woman, and a half. So if I don't know that, and I'm here in Nigeria, imagine people outside of Nigeria. So it's important this story travels across Nigeria and outside of Nigeria as well, to know that we have historical figures like this. We have historic figures. We have people that we can look up to. So it's so important that the story is told. It's crucial.
What role did you play in this series?
Mrs. Coker, who is, she was part of the elite women. Funmilayo Ransom Kuti put together a group of women, the Abeokuta Women's Club, before she changed it into Abeokuta Women's Union, where, they were advocating for low-income women, people who are not so educated. So
this is Mrs.
Coker. Yeah, she went to Cambridge, darling. She was in Cambridge. She was prim, proper. So she didn't believe in Funmilayo Ransom Kuti's idea of helping the masses. Yeah. So it was shocking to her. Like, how do you want us to mix with them? So she did not buy. Yes, she did not buy the idea. She spoke up against that. Funmilayo, what are you doing? This is us, that's them. So that's a bit of my character. So she's not like me. Not like me. Don't say the character's a challenge. I'm not a snob. Yes.
So you've been in the industry for how long now?
Ooh. Should I say I'll say professionally in Nigeria. I'll say let me say for Nigeria, 2017.
Okay.
2017, I moved to Nigeria. I moved back because I went to Unilag for a year and I ran away. It was hard. It was very, very hard. So when I finished education, we'll talk about that after. Yes. So I moved back in 2017. There was NYC, and then I just was trying to juggle doing a 9 to 5 in film as well as breaking into, Nollywood. So I would say 2017, I was able to do a few gigs here and there. Then after COVID, I've just like, let's
do it.
Culture shock. Oh, so many. But I would say I was prepared, like, because I had done school here. So nothing really shocked me after. It's different when you're doing it alone, but there's culture shock every day.
So you say you had done school here. I mean, what does that mean? Just the 1 year?
I attended uni, just the 1 year. Just the 1 year. That was it was enough to kind of prepare me for what was to come. So I did the year in uni.
So what are these culture shocks so that we can know what to shock you
for
with?
others? I think if I had to choose one thing that I would say that it's, to be honest, I would say it's just you have to learn to adapt and learn to blend. You have to learn to blend. Whatever situation you find yourself in or whatever group you find yourself in, you have to learn to blend. You have to learn to just...
A nice way of dodging my question.
Up.
So what next?
I don't want to put anybody in trouble.
So what should we be expecting from you and Oseme?
Doing more for others. I'm a storyteller, and I have been creating small content here and there. So I want to create my own stories. So definitely doing more on my part with creating and building others. I also have a storytelling platform which encourages children to read and develop a culture for reading African stories by African authors. So I have that. So I'm definitely going to do more with that. And yes, just telling more stories. I think I've been behind the camera. I do want to continue doing more behind the camera, writing.
Okay, now there are many people who want to get into the industry, and they have a hard time because they've heard all kinds of things. You have to, what's that word? Talk to the producers in a particular way.
Yeah.
Talk to the directors in a particular way. What would you advise, and how would you advise any young woman or young man out there to get into the industry?
To be bold, and know that you are enough. Because I think of a lot of what I faced trying to get into Nollywood was doubts in your head, not being sure, not knowing how to navigate. So if you're bold and you believe in what you have, you'll be able to approach people with everything you have. So be very bold, be intentional, and to collaborate. They say if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So collaborate. Don't be afraid to collaborate. Don't be afraid to work with people. Yes, that's what I would advise. It's faster that way.
Do you get to prepare in any specific way for your roles?
Training, there are a lot of skills and things I have picked from my training. Okay. Aside from college, I attended an identity drama school, so there are a lot of things that we did there that I still, sometimes, just exercises, warm-ups, all those things, just to help you, just center yourself. And yes.
There's something you didn't tell us earlier.
What?
How did mommy and daddy receive the fact that you wanted to...
that I wanted to come here, right?
No, that you wanted to do
Nollywood.
Yes.
Oh, I've always been supported. They've never kicked against that, luckily enough.
So it's when you wanted to come home.
It's when I wanted to come there, it was a problem.
There, over there.
It's when I wanted to leave the UK and school here that it was a problem.
Why?
School. Because I've been given an opportunity to study abroad and, finish from university and then come home. My mother kind of felt like I was going backwards. So it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. I think my father was the understanding one actually then.
It wasn't easy.
You found it wasn't too bad, was it?
Well, I ran away after a year, so we'll leave that discussion for another day. I'm back now.
A niece of mine who hadn't been for 5-6 years came and was supposed to spend 10 days, ended up spending 6 weeks. She went back last week and she said to me, I'm coming back in September.
Oh, yes, you'll be welcome.
Tell her to come home. Tell her to come
Thank you for your
home.
time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yewande Osame is an actor, television presenter, skilled musician, and dancer. You know, don't worry. The next time she's going to dance. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We're going to let you off this time and not make you sing.
Yes, and dance.
That's fine.
I owe you a performance
That's
next
fine.
time.
Yeah.
And so that's Sunrise for today. We'll bring you a fresh edition next week. I am Alero Edu, yours truly, saying have a wonderful weekend and see you next week.
And Amayo Makinde, do have a beautiful rest of your weekend.
Ciao.